Hey look, it's Lilandra. Okay people, welcome back to another Fwoosh Weekly. As always, I'm Robo, and Star Wars. Sorta, because it's also a bit of a reissue week, but even getting older Star Wars figures reissued, especially being the quality that they are, or they hopefully are this time around, I'm okay with that. And I say that because it's been lean, at least from import companies. We have had some Hasbro Star Wars Black Series reveals, which we'll talk about here in a minute, because of course they went up like 10 minutes after my video posted last week. So we're catching up, right? I mean, that's what we do. I didn't even realize it was an anniversary year for Phantom Menace. Whew. Time just flies, doesn't it? When it comes to product, that doesn't mean a lot in most cases. But this seems to be a first step into a larger world. Yeah. First though, just because Halloween is come and gone and all the stores have switched over to Christmas doesn't mean that there aren't more monster figures to talk about. LooseCollector's The Crypt toy line got some new additions this week with the Great Wolves. We've gotten some super nice werewolves lately, but holy moly. Holy moly. These outweigh the others by quite a bit. And yes, I am talking about size. They are huge figures with some muscle mass to them, but I like that they still seem lithe. They thin down in the core, giving them a kind of agile but aggressive profile. You can also chalk some of that up to the angry expressions, and even the fur brings a little wild into it with the sculpted raised hackles. There's two different color schemes, Gyros in brown and Morocco in gray, which is huge when it comes to making a decision on which one you want, if you're going for just one or the other. But also keep in mind that there's different head sculpts on each. The dark fur version has a more streamlined look with a thinner snout and ears to the back, while the lighter fur wolf's ears are up and then has longer hair in places. It's interesting that Gyros is listed as being from the south, and then Morocco is from the west. Does that mean there's at least two more wolves on the way? Great wolves of the north and the east, maybe one with jet black fur, unique head sculpts for each. Guess we'll just have to wait and see, because LooseCollector is also teasing something else further down the Crypt line. I think this is shaping up to be one hell of a monster shelf. Since the Fwoosh Toys Ninja Scroll Jubei funded, it's time to put up pre-orders for Kaiyodo. Like I said the first time around with Jubei, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, so I am rusty on all the characters, but anyone who has seen this remembers, the main cast and then at least some of the devils. There's a passionate audience out there, so start with the human type characters, work up to the more monster types. Because, when I think of it, even before all this, it was Tasai who jumped in my head every time. So, yeah, that would make for an interesting action figure. But let's get these funded, and then work our way up. Hot on the heels of comic-style Megatron last week, Threezero has now announced that Sideswipe is their next MDLX Transformer. At first I was like, Sideswipe? Nothing against Sideswipe, but my usual pecking order is Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Cliffjumper, of course. Ironhide gives us Ratchet, probably Jazz, and then Prowl and all the reuse that comes with that, and then Sideswipe and the rest. But I freely admit that everybody's order is different. It's all personal preference. And Sideswipe does make sense. There is a lot of repaint and tweak potential. Gives us even more characters. Kind of in line with the Starscream that they solicited a few months back, who gives us Skywarp and Thundercracker and whoever else. And if you're unfamiliar with MDLX, Threezero is taking the G1 designs and updating them. It's the 80s flavor with a lot of modern seasoning. That's all while throwing all kinds of sculpt and articulation and some weathering and some die cast in the mix. Just some good looking Transformers. And while it looks like it can transform, even having some kibble in places, these do not convert. So if that's a sticking point for you, pass on by. This is just another option in the big wide landscape of Transformers toys these days. It gives everybody a chance to collect what they want. A choice. A freedom to collect what you desire without nasty comments from people who think that every super fun time plaything should change from a robot to a cassette player, or a gun, or a planet, or a space shuttle that can hold every Decepticon you can think of. Freedom! Not a lot of McFarlane DC Multiverse news this week, but I have to mention the gold label Big Bad Toy Store exclusive Aquaman Black and White Accent Edition. It's their Aquaman sculpt in black and white, except for the gold accents. Hence, Black and White Accent Edition, I guess. If your action figure interests revolve around grayscale DC characters with just a touch of color, Big Bad Toy Store has you covered. I do like how the picture actually looks like a black and white photo with some Photoshopped yellow. It just... the effect works. While we're on the subject of superheroes, here is a better look at the Kaiyodo Amazing Yamaguchi Marvel Winter Soldier. When the preliminary pictures popped up, I wasn't interested. I feel like Bucky's tactical gear just doesn't lend itself to the Revoltech style. Oh, I get it. He's bendy, he's fighty, but visually it's just there. At the time, I was hoping that unseen photos of other parts and pieces and poses would get me more interested, but nope. Not really. In fact, the unmasked faces pushes me further away. Some stubble would have went a long way here. But then the domino mask reels me back in to about where I was a minute ago, where it's just kind of, okay, that's neat. But the Kaiyodo exclusive Captain America shield is neat, but nothing earth-shattering, because at this point, we all have a few Captain Americas, or at least access to a shield or two. So it just, yoink. Put it here. But that makes for a good exclusive. It's not super necessary. It's just an extra piece that's cool to get with your figure if you order it from one specific spot. Or hey, they could have made guns the Kaiyodo exclusive instead of doing away with them altogether, even though there's trigger fingers. So yeah, overall, I like looking at the pictures, but it's definitely not on my pre-order list. Don't let me sway you. If you're interested in this, this will go up for pre-order next Friday. I also passed on the Amazing Yamaguchi Iron Spiders, and now that they have announced that they're going to reissue those, I'm wondering why I did in the first place, because when it comes to this format, I think Spider-Man is the character to have. He needs all the joints, he needs all the movement, he needs all the posing, and the wonkiness of the articulation almost works in this character's favor. I did get the Spider-Man 2.0 that they've also announced as a reissue, and I can highly recommend it. It's amazing. It's spectacular. It's uncanny. It's Spider-Man. It does all the things a Spider-Man can do, and that's about the best compliment that I can give a figure. Marvel moves us into Hasbro Marvel Legends. I did do initial reactions to their Spider-Man retro carded announcements from MCM London last week, but solicitations went up after that, which means more pretty pictures to look at. So I wanted to just swing back and talk about them because it's a Spider-Man wave. Plus, I've had more time to collect my thoughts than wake up, see pictures, look, back to bed. Tombstone looks good. Really good. A suited body with some bulk to it has a lot of uses. But I am looking at the two heads and wondering why they went with the swap at the bottom of the neck and not putting any articulation in between. I thought it may have been because of the reuse potential with this body. I go back to the Disney Plus Wave Talos, where it was necessary. The human head needed a flesh tone neck, the Skrull head needed a green neck. That's not the case with Tombstone. And I also thought, well, it's the same amount of parts, but that's wrong too, because it takes away the dumbbell joint between the skull and the neck. So it's actually less parts. Is this a cost-cutting thing, maybe? Still a good-looking figure. Still pre-ordered. Same goes for Spider-Shot, or Assassin Spider-Man if you're nasty. This is an Alex Ross design that was used in What If way back. And ever since then, I've seen it in Google, and I don't know if they used it during Spider-Verse or or whatever the comics events have happened. Maybe he's appeared in other places, but I've always went back to that original Alex Ross drawing and thought, you know what, that's kind of neat. It's streamlined. I would like that in action figure form. Boop. It's Peter, just down and dirtier, because he's an assassin. He's integrated a gun into his web shooters. So having that effect along with the pointy fingers, yeah, okay, there's a darkness to it, but it's still Spider-Man. Someone did point out that there is a lot of gap between the legs in the vanilla pose. So when I get this and it goes on the shelf, it's going to be actiony. Then there's Hallows' Eve. And I don't even remember what I said last week. I guess I could go back and look, but I hate watching myself because why'd I do that? But this is one of those rare occasions where I see the toy form of a character before having any kind of idea that it even existed. I'd never even heard of Hallows' Eve. So initial reaction was, who the hell's that? It's kind of neat looking. I need to go find out more. And now I must have it, which breaks my X-Men and classic character only rule, but I don't know. This just calls to me. It's another nice, super articulated female figure for the Spider-Man shelf while adding some orange to the mix, because there's a whole lot of green right now. Well, there is Hobgoblin, but this is more bright, blatant orange. It'll stand out. These three join Last Stand Spider-Man, Scarlet Spider, and Jack-O-Lantern as the full wave. The links are in the description. Like I mentioned, MCM London happened, and we talked about the Marvel Legends both last week and this week. We're going to talk about Star Wars in a minute, but there was also a little bit of G.I.Joe. We had only seen Metalhead in digital form, so getting pretty promotional pictures gives me a lot more context for the character. Yeah, surprise, I don't know Metalhead from Adam, so I can look at these pictures and go, oh, so basically he's a crazy son of a bitch. You gotta be to strap rocket launchers to your back and thighs, with your only protection being a metal helmet on his head. Metal head. Gotcha. This guy has to be a beast on the battlefield. I can't help looking at this picture and not thinking, well, maybe it could also be used as a jetpack propulsion type situation. But that may just be my 5-year-old brain kicking in. I like the helmet, but I think I prefer the goggles because that gives it an air of accuracy. Like it's a targeting system. With the helmet, he's just wading into a battlefield willy-nilly, just letting the system do its own thing. With the goggles, he's being more stealthy with it. Okay, there's a Joe, everywhere's a JoJo. Well, as stealthy and subtle as rockets can be, I guess. With Mud and Junkyard, we had already seen physical copies at San Diego Comic-Con, but these pictures are so good, I don't mind looking again. They're so good that I don't really have the words that are any better than just looking at the pictures. Just look at that. It just... yeah. Mud, Junkyard. Gaze on the glory. That's cool too. Yup. I love that they have matching expressions. But there's also an alternate head where it's, who's a good boy? You're a good boy. Yes, you are. I know this is getting super old, but once again, I didn't have a lot of G.I. Joes when I was a kid. But it seems lately they've been on a tear of showing things that are sparking memories of, wait a second, I did have Mud and Junkyard. I forgot all about that. I think what it comes down to is I didn't have a lot of the main characters, so I don't see it flash in front of me all the time. I had Destro and version 4 Snake Eyes, but other than that, it was all Snow Serpents and Night Creepers and Mud and Junkyard and a few others that, as Classified announces them, it'll be more and more, oh, maybe I did have that. So I didn't have a lot, but I had more than I thought. I think. But I'm making up for it now. Hasbro killing me. Last week when I was talking about the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series R46DO, I was this close to bringing up the fact that it was pipelined along with Phantom Menace Anakin and Padme, and how those would have been better debuts for the 1027 show than another Darth Vader or Mandalorian. I'm glad I didn't though, because those are the exact two figures they showed at MCM London. the next day when my video would have went up an hour or two after that reveal. And then I would have said, oh, they should have showed Padme and Anakin. And everybody would have been like, oh, they did. Why aren't you talking about it? And I'm like, that's not how time works. And y'all are like, we don't care. Do what you're supposed to do. Anyway, Anakin is an all-new sculpt, and it saves me the trouble of tearing up a Jawa because I had planned a custom because I forgot about the pop line release, like I always do. If you don't show me plastic, it doesn't stick in my head. I was getting impatient because this is the Anakin we needed for the display. We have Darth Vader's, we have Anakins from other movies, other media, other versions. This, I was going to say finishes it off, but no, there will always be upgrades a coming. Package looks a little empty with just the backpack display. I feel like this is a missed opportunity to give us a pod racing helmet. Does that mean there's a pod racer coming? Or does it mean there's going to be another single-carded Anakin with a different accessory, maybe some face paint dirty up here like he's been... The Hasbro Star Wars team did post a video on the Pulse YouTube channel after the reveal with looks at the actual prototypes, and Anakin's features are a little more subtle there. Is slightly softer, which is good because in the promotional shots everything's sharp, and it's almost too sharp, like the freckles and the eyes. The hair also doesn't look as gold as the promo pics, which is probably due to different lighting, but maybe the gold was toned down. They didn't actually call out any differences between the two, but they made it a point to discuss that Padme had some improvements since the promo pics were taken. The eyebrows and the hairline have been tweaked to look more natural. Side by side, the press photos look angry with a big forehead, while the studio version has the hair repositioned and faded, and then the eyebrows are in a more neutral position. Which is good because that was the biggest initial gripe. Just, what the hell happened to Padme? This does look a little bit better. So hopefully this is how the final product is gonna look, because it's subtle, but it is improved. It is interesting that she gets 2 trigger finger hands to accommodate the different sizes of the pistols. I didn't expect that. It's almost odd, but I'm not griping. For Popline, there's a Pulse and Disney exclusive Phase 2 clone and battle droid pack, a fan channel Darth Sidious, and another Pulse Disney exclusive that is bonkers. I used to collect and customize 3 3/4 inch figures, and at some point, I did Joris Sibouth, or however you say his name. But that's pushing 25 years ago. I can't even remember what it looked like or where it is at this point. To now get him and Luke and Clone Luke or Luke or however you're supposed to say it, and another Mara Jade in a multi-pack, it's blowing my mind. That's something I did not expect, but welcome. Very, very welcome. I also didn't expect Bandai to pull out a heaping helping of S.H. Figuarts Star Wars offerings this week. They're all reissues, but they're good gets if you didn't have them or you wanted upgrades. Like a New Hope Luke, this is a good reissue. This is the one I use in my main display. And I'm not talking about as a New Hope version alongside Empire and Return of the Jedi and the sequels and whoever else. This is my Luke in the display. And I would buy it again if they had listed any kind of upgrades, like to the face printing. But these are the original promo pics from back in 2015, 2016, whenever this came out. The SHF Rise of Skywalker Rey was thrown in a box right after I reviewed it, though. The swappable hoods were a pain in the ass. There wasn't any movement to the mid-torso, and when you pushed it, it just came apart. Same with the legs. A little bit of pressure, pop, right off. And I actually don't know why they're reissuing this, because the original can still be had for around regular price, unless they plan on fixing some of those issues. But again, original pictures. Nothing saying, hey, we're gonna make it more sturdy. The Dio is nice, though. Oh, and I look forward to reading some of y'all's comments as to why this is a bad choice for a reissue. Like I said at the first, it's the Phantom Menace anniversary, so what better time than to reissue the Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi? It was the first Figuarts Obi-Wan. It's the one that got the ball rolling, and it had many a Kenobi following it. And again, like Luke, like Rey, these are the original promotional images. So as far as I know, they're just going back to the factory, producing more, shipping them out to customers. That's it. But when it comes to Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, there are some new additions. The Qui-Gon reissue now has the more modern optional lightsaber blade that looks like it's whooshing, a Naboo starship hologram, a Jedi robe, and the Tatooine poncho to hide his Jedi-ness. Oh, and a communicator to go with that totally normal having a simple conversation optional head. It is not the, oh dang, I just got stabbed with a laser sword. Am I going to be the only one in the Star Wars universe to die from a wound like this? I want to say the face paints are different this time around, a bit improved, but that also may be a prototype final product type situation. Darth Maul is also mostly the same as the original release when it comes to the figure itself, and hopefully they've changed the tolerances on those hands so it's not an absolute nightmare to switch those out, because even after all these years, that's one of my main memories of this figure, of getting in front of the camera and going, I cannot get this hand to go on. But then there's also some obvious differences. The paints on the head seem a bit more involved, with the base of the horns painted and larger pupils. And is it just me, or have the horns been dulled down? I think that may have been a thing too. You swap the heads, you go to push on top or anywhere, and whoo, you're stabbing yourself. Then there's new swooshy lightsaber blades, bulky Sith robes, and a probe droid. This is not the probe droid that came with the Sith speeder. This is an updated sculpt. Oddly enough, the Phantom Menace Figuarts reissues complement the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series offerings perfectly. Weird how that works out, huh? Also, the 3 Episode 1 figures are pretty much sold out at everywhere I can find, so you may have to hunt those down. Or see if they pop up closer to release, because that's the game I'm playing with. That was the last Darth Vader Return of the Jedi that looks so good that I missed the pre-orders. And that's all I got for this week at this exact moment. This morning, Friday, Hasbro announced that there will be a Marvel Legends reveal at Lucca Comic and Games in Italy. And it was supposed to happen, and it hasn't yet. So here I am recording, and wait, let me see what's going on. Oh, it's Lilandra from the X-Men. We've had her head. It was included with, was it Mystique or somebody else? And I've been planning to make a body for her. I've seen some good customs out there, but now I guess I don't have to do any of that. I should go back and put this in with the rest of the Marvel Legends news, but I'm not gonna, because that's the kind of mood I'm in at this point. You're just gonna have to deal with it. But